Hello guys, welcome back to another video, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the Apple M1 iPad Pro. So let's begin. Okay, so the iPad Pro. So I've had this iPad Pro now for about 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks, and I'm going to be telling you all the good things, all the bad things, and should you buy this M1 iPad Pro. And to answer this straight, I think you shouldn't, as good as it is. So let's now talk about the main features. Let's now talk about design. So the design of the iPad Pro has been like this for 3 years now, basically. It hasn't changed. And by today's standards, it's still a relatively good modern design. It's thin, it's light, it's beautiful, and it's relatively modern. The bezels are fine. The bezel size are fine. It's not too thick, it's not too outdated. You get space gray and silver for the iPad Pro, and with the size of 11 or 12.9 inches. It's a good design. I like it. That's all I can say about it. Let's now move on to the big feature of the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, the display. This has a mini LED display or Super Retina XDR display. And what that means is you get 1000 nits of brightness, peak brightness, 1600 peak HDR brightness. So when watching HDR content, you get 1600 nits of brightness. You get 1,000,000 to 1 contrast ratio, P3 color gamut, 120 Hz of refresh rate like we're used to with the iPad Pros. And with mini LED, what it means is it's bright, as I said, but you get nice deep blacks, nice colors, like an OLED, but not really OLED. And the benefits of mini LED, it's not gonna have burn-in effects like OLED might after long-term use. So I could be wrong, but I'm excited to see how this mini LED display would hold up after a long time of use. And the big thing for me though that stands out is the deep blacks. So much better to watch content on this iPad than my previous 11-inch iPad Pro. But also, I'm excited to see how. I really like the fact that this iPad is bright. I've had issues with watching content in bright rooms, bright environment with my 11-inch iPad with the LCD display, because that thing only goes up to 600 nits of brightness. However, this display goes up to 1000, so it's much easier to watch content on when you're in a bright environment. Also, of course, as I said, you get 120 Hz of ProMotion, which is amazing, especially when using the trackpad on the Magic Keyboard. It's amazing. Like, everything's so smooth. The scrolling, the swiping with apps, it's just, yeah, amazing. That's all I can say. Let's now talk about battery life, because battery life on this iPad Pro has been, well, again, amazing. With the M1 chip being so efficient, the iPad Pro's battery life has been great. Now, some things to take note in. If you have the Magic Keyboard and the Apple Pencil, the iPad Pro's battery will drain pretty quickly, because the Magic Keyboard, it's quite a device that will eat up a lot of battery. The iPad needs to power the trackpad, the backlit keys, that a lot of battery goes into that. Also, you have to charge the Apple Pencil. So beware, if you have those two accessories, it might eat up a lot of battery. But sometimes I remove the iPad Pro from the accessories and just use it with my hands, and like that, the battery life is amazing. And if you're doing like especially simple tasks, web scrolling, the battery should at least maybe last you a day and a half. So yeah, the M1's battery, it's great. Let's now talk about the M1 now, the beast that powers this machine. The M1 has 8-core CPUs and 8-core GPUs, and it has 8 gigabytes of RAM, 16-core neural engine. Basically, this chip is amazing. I keep saying this word because this iPad is amazing. But yeah, the chip, it's really powerful. And when playing some games that are graphic intensive, I do notice that the M1's graphics are much better than my previous iPad Pro's A12X graphics, but it's a small noticeable difference. The benefits, of course, of the M1 is its battery efficiency. So just this iPad's battery life has been way better than my A12X. Now, the My previous iPad Pro was an 11-inch, so the battery was smaller there, but I'm pretty sure the 11-inch iPad Pro M1 can have a great battery life as well. Even if you put the brightness at max, the battery life is amazing. But anyway, I'm going off topic here. Let's not talk. The M1 chip, as I said, amazing, battery efficient, really powerful, and I'm really excited to see how this goes with video editing, because I'll be doing a video on video editing on this iPad Pro M1, because I'm really excited to see how the M1 what the M1 chip is basically, and how does it cope with video editing. Because with my previous iPad Pro, the iPad Pro couldn't handle video editing 4K. I used Adobe Premiere Rush and it just stuttered. It was really hard to edit videos. So I'm really excited how this M1 chip will cope with video editing. So stay tuned for that video. Anyways, now I'm going to talk about all the dislikes, which I have small dislikes about this iPad. First of all, blooming. Now this is a spoken issue, but this iPad Pro has blooming. If you watch something that has a lot of black and then you have suddenly a white or gray silver object in the screen, you will notice like background shadow that's white. That's called blooming, and it has been a general issue for the mini LED iPad Pro. However, to be honest, it doesn't annoy me that much. It's just that it's quite a bit weird that Apple, a big tech company, didn't take that in notice and resolve the issue. However, it doesn't seem to annoy a lot of people, so it's not really a big issue. But that's something to take note of. Next up, the size. Now, as much as I like the iPad Pro 12.9 inch, the size at the same time can be too big. I like the portability of my 11-inch iPad Pro. It was easy to hold in the hand, play games. This is, when you hold it, it's a bit too big. And now I do take the case off so I don't need. When playing games, this holding it for a long time feels uncomfortable. It feels too big, and sometimes you can't reach some buttons and you have to readjust everything. The big iPad Pro can be sometimes a bit hard. It's great to watch content on, do work on, thanks to the bigger display, but when it comes to playing games, the bigger size does kind of make it harder. But it's, again, not a big issue. Other than that, I don't have any dislikes. And now I'm going to answer the question, should you buy the iPad Pro M1 12.9 inch? And my answer to that, I think, would be no, because this iPad Pro might be like overkill for most people. The only reason why you might want to buy this iPad is as a computer replacement. Apple targets the iPad Pro as like a laptop replacement, and it's quite noticeable. Why did they roll out the Magic Keyboard? You turn your iPad into a laptop. So with the M1 now being there, the same processor that powers the MacBook Air, the Mac Mini, the iMac, and the MacBook Pro 13, it's quite obvious that this might be an iPad OS laptop. And if you want to replace your MacBook with an iPad, this might be your option, especially the 12.9 inch model, because it has the same screen size as a 13 inch, well, basically the same screen size as a 13 inch MacBook Pro or Air. Something I want to say about the 13 inch iPad Pro model. It is big. Like, I'm used to having a 13 inch MacBook Pro or Air because that's the smallest Mac you can get in Apple's lineup. But the 13 inch iPad Pro is the biggest iPad you can get in Apple's lineup of iPads. And it is big. Like, even though it's only 13 inches, the same size as MacBook Pro, it still feels big. You get such a big tablet. And yeah, it's kind of strange that it's the same size, but at the same time it feels big. But anyway, as I said, you might only consider this if you want to replace your iPad with a laptop. If you want to replace your laptop with this iPad. However, if you actually do all the calculating, a MacBook Air base model M1 is going to be cheaper than buying this with the keyboard, with the Apple Pencil. This will cost more expensive. So, as much as this iPad Pro is cool, it might be overkill for a lot of people. So I would just recommend get an iPad Air. It's a relatively modern A15 Bionic processor. You can run games, you can have Apple Pencil support, you can have Magic Keyboard support, and it's 11 inches or 10.9 inches, still not a big difference, and much cheaper than the iPad Pro. and will probably be enough for most people. Or hence you can even get probably an iPad, the normal iPad, which costs 350 pounds with as the base model. Because if you're just going to be watching content, surfing through the web, the normal iPad is the way to go. 350 pounds, you get a basic tablet. So this iPad Pro really, maybe it makes more sense to get it in the 12.9-inch model thanks to the mini LED display. The 11-inch kind of doesn't make sense because you have the uh, iPad Air, so maybe consider that instead. So yeah, this iPad Pro, as cool as it is with the M1, Apple gave it too much power probably because no one's gonna use all the power M1 offers probably on their iPad. It might be over. It probably is overkill for a lot of people. It is overkill for me, but I'm a tech head. I like cool tech. So yeah, to put it short, should you buy this iPad Pro? I would say no. Um, as much as I like it. But yeah, guys, that's been it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.